The topic that I've chosen to talk about called Life Without Lies, because as young people living in this world, there's a lot of lies that we need to navigate. I want you to be able to navigate the world and your decisions and where you go and what you do without coming under the lies, because the lies are meant to trap you, to rob you of God's best for your life. The world is full of lies. What are the lies in our world today?
There is no God.
That's one of the lies. Yes, and one of the books that was published, 40 odd years ago, God is dead, so yes. In 2016, there was a man who wished to become the President of the United States. And he complained that the media in America was making up stories that weren't true. And he said the news is not true news, it is fake news. And everybody laughed. Oh, he's only saying that because they're saying unkind things about him. But now most people would agree you cannot really trust the news. He was the one that opened our eyes to the fact that a lot of news is just made up. Many years ago, I worked on the radio, and one of the programs that I had to do was called Newsbeat. And we would go out on a Saturday night and we would chase ambulances. We would go to car accidents, disasters, houses that burned down. And my job was to be there saying, I'm now standing on the side of the road beside a burnt building. Can you hear the fire engine in the background? And I went to all kinds of things, dead people and car accidents and things. There was a man who was doing the job before me, and he found that some nights there were no accidents. Nothing happened. So what he would do, he would make up a story. He would say, oh, there's a man coming past here and he's drunk and he's going to hit something. Then he would go and kick a garbage bin. Clang, 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 clang. Oh, he's had an accident. And the people listening on that would not know that he just completely made up. It was just because once he had enough stories, he could go to bed. So he made up a story so he could finish and go to bed. So the idea of fake news, that people are saying things that just are not true. There was some story about Donald Trump that his wife was weeping and pleading with him, please give up trying to be the president. Never happened. So our world is full of lies. Give me some other examples.
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want.
You're
Whatever you want.
Completely free.
The ideal is to be free, have what you want, do what you want, when you want to do it. And you can get away with it. Yeah?
Money buys happiness.
Money buys happiness. Brilliant. Yes. What about just the fact that there are so many religions? They cannot all be right because they all tell you that the other ones are wrong. There must be a lot of religious lies going on behind some of these religions, if not many of them. Politics, full of lies, isn't it? If you elect us, we're going to do all of these things. They get elected. We realize it's much harder than we thought. They left us with more of a debt than we wanted, and we can't do what we said we were going to do. They were never going to do it in the first place. So they lied, and then they gave an excuse. That's pretty typical. Or something happens and the people in government say the opposition are stupid, and the opposition people are saying the government people are hopeless. They're telling stories all the time. And you have to listen to it. Every time you watch the news, you're listening to more and more of this rubbish. Any other ideas?
If you stick on this diet, you will get...
Of course. So we're talking advertising and marketing. Yes. Someone was explaining that they had an advertisement for a Mercedes car in Australia, and a very expensive one of the most expensive ones, whatever it was. Leaning on the front of the car was a beautiful woman. Most men who could afford to buy that car would have been her father. So this was not a young man's car. But they had a young woman leaning on the car. And the question was, can you handle this? And it was double meaning, can you handle this car? Can you handle this woman? And it was all about, if you had owned a car like this, just imagine what opportunities you might have. So this sort of marketing all the time that has subliminal messages and promises that are not kept. Yes, in advertising and marketing, that the historical record is completely unreliable. Right now we have people saying there was no Holocaust, other people saying absolutely there was. You've got the Holocaust Museum right here. You've got completely different lines of thought, people saying one thing and people saying another about things that are historical. Alexander the Great, was he Greek or was he Macedonian? Depends which textbook you read. So how do you know what is actually really true? Drug companies hiding their unwanted information about, we tested this drug and it's perfectly good. Back in about the 1950s, was it? There was a drug called thalidomide, and it was for women that were expecting a baby, And it was to stop them from having morning sickness and feeling unwell. What they didn't tell them was that it would actually cause the children to be born with birth defects, and many of them became disabled people for the whole of their life. The drug company actually turns out they knew that this was a possibility, but they lied and said it's perfectly safe. I hear that you've got protests happening in Skopje at the moment because of a medical unit that was built during COVID and it burnt down and 14 people died, right? No one is responsible.
Yeah.
It's not true that no one's responsible. Who wants to be responsible? You'd be responsible for a murderer. They're all going to lie. They're all going to tell their lies because nobody wants to accept responsibility. So we live in a world full of lies. Do people lie to each other?
Yes.
How?
By conversation.
Conversations is what they say? What about Facebook? Do you think Facebook is always, people always put the true picture of themselves on Facebook or on social media?
On Instagram.
On Instagram.
Instagram it's true, but Facebook it's not.
Well,
No,
you're a
no,
bit
no.
older, so you know Facebook.
Only the best, the
The
best parts
best- Yes.
are on the social medias,
Yes.
and the bad parts there.
Hide.
They delete them. You know,
Out of 99 pictures, the best one is posted.
yes, absolutely. And why? Why would people keep doing that?
To show the others, oh look at me, I'm
To
doing
make
this,
themselves-
How best
I'm
they are.
there, I'm
Yes.
here.
Look better than they are,
To look better than they are.
and to portray that they have a life better than they.
Oh, you should be me. I am so happy. Oh,
Yes.
oh, you don't know. People say that social media has been very bad for young people because now they have more opportunity to lie and more people lying to them, and they struggle more and more with feeling accepted. And then if people they like someone else's picture, but they don't like your picture. Oh no, they didn't like my picture, or they unfriend you, and people committing suicide because of these pressures that did not exist before. You think that is so tragic. Why are lies common in our world?
It all started with a lie.
It all started with a lie.
Like the snake, and when she
Yeah,
was-
okay, good. Yep. The devil lied right at the beginning in the
Yeah,
garden.
well, if you want a theological answer, since the devil is the prince of the world and he is the father of all lies, that's why you have lies.
You've been reading my notes.
Yes, Lana.
Yeah, I swear I did. I swear.
Exactly. If the devil is the prince of the world, he runs this world system. If the person running a company was a thief, then the whole company would be about ripping people off. If the person running the company is a liar, then the whole company is based on lies. Prince of this world is a liar. So the world is based on lies. He is going to tell people lies, they will tell other people lies, they'll all be caught up in lie, because that's just the system that this world gives us. And so without us realizing it, if we just grow up in the world, we become trapped in a web of lies and we don't even know it. Which is why my topic is life without lies. Imagine living in a world full of lies and being untouched by the lies. You are an amazing person at that point. You are free. Other people aren't, and you are, because you can see what's going on and they can't. And they follow like sheep in this direction, and you stand back saying, I'm not going there. But they say, oh, but you must do this. You say, no, I don't have to. And you have a freedom that they don't have if you can have life without lies. And let's just consider a couple of things that I would reflect on. The person who dies with the biggest pile of possessions is the luckiest one. But he's dead, like whether he's got a pile of possessions or not, he's dead. But people are chasing and chasing and chasing more money, the latest iPhone, a bigger house, the newer car. Here's an interesting lie. Democracy protects the people. Is that true? Do you have a democracy here in Macedonia? You were so safe. You were so blessed. You are not some tribal place. You have democracy. In America, they have democracy. I think the election got stolen. People have the lie, serving yourself is your most important objective. How can you help someone else if you're not looking after yourself? Make sure you look after yourself first. That's a fairly common kind of lie in the minds of people. Knowledge is power. Go back to university, get another degree. One of the things that is ubiquitous, it happens every generation, is that the pop culture is the best possible culture in the world. They'll look at me and say, you are so out of date, you cannot name any of the current rappers. And that's true. But because of that, they think you're irrelevant. Can you name the top 5 actors at the moment and their movies? No, I can't. Ah, well, then you are nobody, you know. Do you know the latest songs? No, I don't. Well, then you are nobody. Because the pop culture. You've got to have the latest song. You've got to engage with the pop culture. But, you know, the pop culture from when I was growing up in the 1960s, nobody cares about it now. And then the pop culture from the 1970s, nobody cares about it now. And the pop culture from the 1980s, and then the 1990s, and 2010. And what's going to happen to today's pop culture? It's going to quickly become out of date. But there's this sense in the mind of people, I will prove that I'm really with it because I'll be right up there with the current pop culture. These things are just deeply embedded cultural lies that people live with. You heard of the man called David Attenborough?
Yeah, the naturalist.
A naturalist, he's called. And so there are English-speaking documentaries, beautiful filming around the world of animals and sea creatures and everything else. And he talks about evolution, 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 evolution. The man must be in his 80s now, maybe even 90. And he's been doing this for 50 years. So if you're in the English-speaking culture, David Attenborough and evolution, it's very hard to not come across that. My wife's father wrote to him probably in about 1970 and wrote to him and said, Mr. Attenborough, you keep talking evolution. He said, I want you to know that evolution has not been proven. Evolution is only a theory, and yet you talk about it as if it's a fact. And David Attenborough wrote back to him saying, evolution is true, it just hasn't been proved yet. This is his bias, this is his belief. So even though he now knows that it hasn't been proven, he continues to talk about it as if this is an absolute fact, absolute fact, absolute fact, absolute fact, absolute fact. And so when he gets challenged that there is no evidence to support this, he says, it is true, just hasn't been proven yet. Well, that's obviously a lie in his own mind about how to find truth. You don't find truth by saying it's true even though there's no evidence. You have to base your belief on something more substantial than that. Lies have a purpose. The enemy doesn't lie to us just to amuse himself and laugh at us because he fooled us. The enemy lies in order to bring us into a trap. Well, he either brings us into a trap or he brings us into fear. How can you tell if something is a lie? We need outside information to be able to protect ourselves. So let me talk about a couple of key lies that I think the enemy likes to do with us, to mess with us. Doing this will make your life better. Who got that lie told them the first time was Eve. Eat this fruit and you will know between good and evil. And so there's this wonderful lie that comes to us. I know you're really excited about that person. They really turn you on. If you were to go and flirt with them, if you were to go and maybe have a relationship with them, think how happy you could be. And the promise is, do that and you'll be better off. And you know exactly what's going to happen. As soon as you give in to sin, Eve, was she better off? How much better off was she? How much better off? She was in paradise. And she ended up in this absolute loss of all of the good things. So the lie is, do this. Oh, you'll feel a whole lot better. Just go and punch him. Come on, he really bothers you. Just go and punch him. You'll feel so much better. Really? Oh, wait behind the building. When he comes around, just, oh, I'd like to do that. Yeah, I think I'd feel really good. And so the promise is, if you do this, the benefit will be lifting you up, but when you do it, you come down into a trap. And it's pretty obvious because, as Jesus said in John chapter 8, he said, if you commit sin, you become a slave to that sin. And Paul said in Romans that whoever you present yourself to serve that one, they become your master. So if you choose to serve anger, anger becomes your master. You serve immorality, immorality becomes your master. And so we are warned not to go down those roads. Galatians 6, verse 7 and 8. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever you sow is what you're going to reap. If you sow to your flesh, you will reap rottenness. If you sow to the Spirit, you will reap life. But the enemy comes along and says, just do that, and you're going to be so much better off. So that's a very common lie. So many people, they will try their first try of drugs. They will try sex. They will try pride. They will try violence. They will try lies and cheating, always with the expectation that it's going to make things better. And all it does is bring them down. Another very common lie is that your personal worth is determined by others, which is the Facebook thing, the social media thing. Your personal worth is determined by others. And you know, I talk about living life without lies. It is so wonderful, so freeing when you don't care whether people like you or not. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit awkward when people say unkind things about you or they don't invite you to something. But when you're free from that, it's just remarkably free. I was exploring this at high school. I remember when maybe I was about 16 or something, and one of the boys who liked to be a tough guy would wander around the school grounds during the lunch break or something with 2 or 3 of his mates, and he would walk up to somebody and try and scare them, try and intimidate them, say unkind or nasty things to them, to either get them in a fight and have the guys bash them up, or to annoy them and then walk away saying, "Aren't I the hero? You know, I scared those people." So this fella comes up to me, and I was standing with 2 or 3 of my friends, and he said, "Hey, Fieldsy." That's kind of the way, my name is Fields, so he called me Fieldsy. "Hey, Fieldsy, you're an idiot." So he was just trying to provoke something. And I turned around and I said, "Shh, we're trying to keep it a secret." And he did what you did, he just laughed. He said, he slapped me on the shoulder, "Oh, I like you, Fieldsy, you're funny." And then off he went, you see. So I disarmed his intimidation because I really wasn't intimidated by him. You know, I was free to be myself, free to be an idiot. It really didn't matter. So when you think your personal worth is determined by other people, you really do come under a terrible trap and a snare where you're forever wondering, should I do something else with my hair? Or maybe I should update my look completely. You know, well, why? Just look at the facts about this old man talking to you right now, right? I'm old, I'm grey, and I'm fat. That's just the facts, right? So what should I do? Suck my stomach in. Try and look younger. Why? Because I'm an old, fat man. I'm grey. That's who I am. And if I can sit back and say, well, that's my stomach, and that's my grey hair, and that's my beard, and here I am, I'm free. I don't have to put colour through my hair. Do you think it suits me? Does it match my eyes? I don't have to play any of those games. I can just be me, right? And so the lie that other people determine your value brings you into all of these traps that you don't need to be in. You just don't need to be there at all. The world wants to impose value on you. And so you'll find people who will be really quite nasty because they bought into this value system. There are people who will even hate you for being free because it bothers them. They know they're not. They resent the fact that you have a freedom that they don't have. And so they say things. You think you're smart, well, you haven't even got 3 degrees, what I have. And they'd say things to put you down all the time because they're hurting on the inside. They resent the fact that you have some freedom and comfort in yourself. They want to bring you into this same slavery that they are in. Here's an interesting lie that I find all over Macedonia in the Methodist, Evangelical, Baptist churches. If you go to church, you're a Christian. Why is that a lie?
Because if someone has not truly given their life to Christ, they're not Christian. They can go to church without doing that.
Absolutely true. But here's the problem, not so much for the Baptists, but it's a problem for the Methodists. You get born as a baby, and you may not even remember the event. Your parents take you to church, and you get christened, and you don't remember the event. And you were told now that you are a
Christian.
Well, you're not a Muslim, are you? You know, you're a Christian. You're not a Buddhist. So you are a Christian. And Christians do what?
Go to church.
Ta-da! They go to church on Sunday. So now you go to church on Sunday. Why? Because you're a Christian. If I'm already a Christian, I'm going to church on Sunday. Do I need to become a Christian? I don't need to become what I already am. And so then you're told at about the age of 12, you need to get confirmed. What's all that about? Well, it's just sort of to make sure that you affirm the things that you stand for. Oh, okay, my friends are doing it. Okay, I'll do it. And they go through a process which may or may not be personally real for them. And then a person goes through the confirmation process in the Catholic Church, Anglican Church, Presbyterian, Methodist churches that go through this process. Before they get confirmed, they call themselves a Christian and they go to church and they do all the things that are expected of them, like youth group or whatever else. They get confirmed. Next week, they go to church, they call themselves a Christian and they go to the youth group. What has changed? Nothing has necessarily changed unless they had a personal encounter with God. And so we find people who have spent their life going to church who are not sure whether they've ever had anything more than just this process of going to church. So a man in his 60s talked to me about 3 weeks ago. He had coffee with me and he said, I'm troubled by what you said at a particular meeting in Murtino. He said, it's bothered me ever since what you said. He said, I have the habit of going to church because all of my life I've always gone to church. And I like going to church. It's my habit. So I wouldn't want to do anything else but go to church on Sunday. But I don't know if it's anything more than just habit. I do not know if there's anything inside me other than just the habit. So the lie, going to church makes you a Christian, can rob people of that experience of saying, I know that I have put my faith in Jesus. I know that I have stepped into God's kingdom. All of the traditional churches have that problem. The Baptists less likely, because they're going to say to somebody, you are not a Christian until you walk down the front and you confess your faith in Jesus and you pray the sinner's prayer and then you get baptized. So there's more of a rite of passage built into the Baptist or maybe Pentecostal churches, or the evangelists that go and preach in the street and call people to faith. But for the traditional churches, I'm not saying they're not Christian. I'm just saying that they get lost with uncertainty about who they really are and whether they really did or didn't complete the process or achieve this moment of being born again. And so one of the things I want to encourage people to do is actually just to confess their faith. Because if we confess with our mouth the Lord Jesus, that Jesus is Lord, and we believe in our heart that God has raised him from the dead, we are saved. We don't have to do that in a tent crusade. We don't have to do that at the front of a church. We don't have to do that and get baptized in a pool to prove that we'd said it. It has to happen sometime in our journey. For our children, most often, my wife would sit with them and say, we've been going to church, you know all about Jesus. Do you want to be saved? Do you want Jesus to be your Savior? Do you want God to be your Father? And they'll say, yes, I do. My wife will say to them, well, are you ready to put your faith in Jesus? And she would, and you just get them to pray a prayer. They might be 7 or whatever age they are, and they can look back to that moment. Yes, Mum talked to me, and I prayed with, and I gave my heart to Jesus. One of my missionary friends told me that he had a very stroppy, argumentative young son, a very willful young son, 2.5 or 3 years old. And he was sitting in his chair and throwing food. And the father told him he shouldn't do that and then disciplined him. And the father said to him, do you know that there's evil in your heart? You're actually selfish and willful. That's why you want to throw food. That's why you want to be disobedient. That's why you get all angry. You need to ask Jesus to set you free. Would you like to do that? And the child said, no. So the next day, in the mealtime, the child is throwing food or doing something else, and the father takes the child and spanks the child's backside and says to the child, you know, I love you, that's why I'm disciplining you. But you know, this evil that's in your heart, you're not going to get rid of it yourself. You're going to have to ask Jesus to come into your heart, and you've got to get free. And do you want to let Jesus into your heart? No. So this went on for a couple of weeks. He said, well, I have to discipline you because the Bible says so, and I care about you, and I want to train you. But kept saying to the child, there is selfishness and willfulness in your heart. And the only one that can really conquer that is Jesus. Are you willing to let Jesus come into your heart? And after some weeks of doing this day after day after day, he smacked the child, talked to the child, said to the child, now you know there's evil in your heart. Do you want Jesus to set you free? And the child said, yes, I do. And so the father was able to talk to the child about asking Jesus into their heart and saying, there is sin in my heart. I am selfish and I don't want to be this way. That boy now is a missionary in South America. So that's beautiful of that father to be wise enough to take the child on a journey. But for those who just go to church passively, whichever church it is, over time, they don't have the same journey of the heart, the same clarity. So I encourage people to just simply say, I declare that Jesus Christ is Lord. I believe that he rose from the dead. I confess him as my Lord. I get the congregation to do that. We can all do that together. Why don't we just do that now? But the statement I would make is, I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. Reckon we can say that? I believe that Jesus rose from the dead, and I confess him as my Lord. And I confess him as my Lord. It doesn't have to be so much more complicated, right? A missionary lady in America that I met, an older lady, and she would speak at women's conferences. And she went to this women's conference and they said, oh, we need you to pray for Jean. What's the problem with Jean? She's a lovely lady and she's been helping out and she's never got any real assurance about whether she's saved or not. And this lady went up to Jean, who was sitting at the table giving out the admission tickets and name tags at the conference. Said, Jean, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? She said, yes, I do. Do you confess Jesus as your Lord? She said, yes, I do. Well, then you're saved. Will you just shut up and do, she just needed someone to kind of confirm and to clarify that for her. Another lie, tragically, is that you'll be better off dead. When I was in Skopje only a number of weeks ago, I was taken by Marinko and his family up to the little dam where there's a small lake reservoir there. We went out on a rowboat. And they said, we'd like to take you onto the wall of the dam. It's really quite pretty, but it's all gated off now and they have a security guard. Because so many of the young people from the local high school were coming up here and jumping off the thing and killing themselves. They had to lock it up so that people don't do that. Young people haven't even finished their education, killing themselves. Why? Something inside them says, you're so useless, life is so unsatisfying, there is so little hope, you are better off dead. And it's just a tragic lie. It's not true. Not for them, not for their family and their loved ones or anyone else. But sadly, suicide has continued to be in epidemic proportions in so many places. To live without lies means we have to be standing on the truth. And as I say to people, there is only one source of truly objective, independent truth. I spoke on Sunday morning in Strumitzer with the question, where does your truth come from? I say, but where does your truth come from? It can only come from one of three places, either the devil, man, or God. Well, the devil is a liar. Man is completely useless because they will simply say whatever they think suits their bias or their agenda or their whatever. People will lie to you for all kinds of reasons. Only God's word is the source of truth. And Peter said to us, this is the more sure foundation. He said, yes, there's also kinds of prophecies, gifts of prophecy were happening right then in the New Testament church. But he said, this is the more sure word. Everything else that you think God is saying, that an angel says to you, must stand upon this. If it challenges this or undermines it, then it's a lie. It's not to be trusted. So as we come to the place of accepting God's word as truth, we can enjoy what Jesus said, the truth making us free. The truth actually making us free.